Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, Chapter 13, Part 3, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. Chapter Contents, Cathedral of Faith. Trinity Broadcasting. Paul Crouch. Greg Glory. David Phelps. Summarizing the Strategy of Undercover Wolves. The Coming Great Apostasy. Oral Roberts. The Oxnam Connection. Kenneth Copeland. Ted Haggard. Richard and Lindsay Roberts. W.E. Report, You Decide. I have had much discussion with friends and family over how to approach this particular chapter. What I have wanted to do is find a way for the reader to look at a wide array of evidence, anomalies, and whatnot that I have run into while researching the charismatic and evangelical world. But without having anyone, myself included, jumping to any premature or unjust conclusions. Some of the examples I provide seem to involve fairly blatant indications of foul play, such as with Oral Roberts, Tim LaHaye or Rick Warren. With some, I don't know quite what to make of the indications, but I want others to at least look at some of the material. As I have stated in a number of different ways in this report, you don't get to have too many hard and fast conclusions in this kind of research. We can see the big picture. We can see there is a satanic global conspiracy. But when it comes to actual specific individuals, almost all of them are shrouded in some form or fashion, hiding under layers of plausible deniability. Or the other possibility, they have nothing to hide because they simply aren't occultists. Is K. Arthur covertly occultic, for example? I can't form a dogmatic conclusion. I have my suspicions. I have my working hypotheses. I have my surmisings. But there is some chance that people in her position have, without their knowledge, been surrounded by Luciferians. And as I had already said in regards to that particular possibility, this still makes it a very serious situation. And it still means there is a very ominous satanic infiltration going on in conservative church culture. One which ties into a satanic plot meant to lure church-going people into a deadly trap. Cathedral of Faith Worklife.org. And so, what to make of the Cathedral of Faith Worklife website symbolism, seen directly below, and the remarkable similarity of its logo to that of Aleister Crowley's logo? I don't know for sure, but it certainly is unsettling, at the least. You will notice that when you now click on the link to Cathedral of Faith Worklife website, you no longer see the above imagery. Everything at this site has been changed in the months since I first posted the information. Below, you see the seal of the Ordo Templi Orientis, a blatantly occultic group with direct ties to Freemasonry. Besides the conspicuous upside-down, dead bird, there are a number of occult symbols depicted here. The Eye of Ra at the top, the triangle, the yoni shape of the seal, and so on. Aleister Crowley, the most notorious Satanist of the last century, displayed this logo on the title page of his satanic primer, The Book of Law, 1904, and signed the name Baphomet next to it. Cathedral of Faith Worklife is far from being the only church organization to have utilized Crowley's upside-down death bird. You'll see the imagery all throughout the charismatic world in particular. I'm not even sure who Worklife Group is, and what their connection might be to a church by the same name, Cathedral of Faith, located in San Jose, California. This San Jose church has the identical bird symbolism below, but also has many other very troubling indicators as well. One of those troubling indicators is the way in which they reshape their dove on a monument, of sorts, standing out in front of their church building. See photos below. You'll notice the dove has now, subtly, evolved into the form of a butterfly. Apart from the context provided in this research report of covert occultism in conservative Christianity, this is really a rather strange thing. Why have they botched this rather simple depiction of a bird, and accidentally turned it into a very close resemblance of a butterfly? Understand this, the butterfly symbol is commonly associated with the CIA's notorious Monarch mind control program. Monarch slaves are known for having butterfly tattoos, and otherwise displaying the monarch butterfly symbol, with hairpins, jewelry, and so forth. And so again, why would this church organization spend money and effort on this otherwise sleek, expensive-looking monument but failed to retain the services of an artist competent enough to produce an accurate replication of this very simple, straightforward dove symbol. Is it just a coincidence? If so, they have accidentally replicated both an Aleister Crowley/OTO occult symbol and now a CIA monarch symbol. That is quite unfortunate, particularly in the context of a number of investigative reports regarding a satanic, CIA, program to infiltrate charismatic churches. The Trinity Broadcasting Network logo, below, is another example of the Crowley symbolism. TBN was founded by Paul and Jan Crouch. Article from the Los Angeles Times. Scandal, Sex and Sanctimony, Paul Crouch and TBN. The Vineyard Church. As a general observation, I have to say there is a lot of, at best, enigmatic symbolism in the charismatic church world. Below, the crescent or horned moon, wrapped around the V-shape, is big in the world of occult symbolism, and the V-shape has previously been discussed here. As is frequently the case, symbols can have dual significance. This triangle shape with the dot in the middle could signify a modified all-seeing eye. Or, it is possible it all signifies nothing. For comparison, the Masonic apron, above, an example of a downward-pointing triangle with the all-seeing eye. The corporate logo symbolism of Vonage, above, has previously been noted by occult researchers. There are any number of corporate logos that present variations of the all-seeing eye. Go back to my chapter 1 and scroll down a bit past halfway for a lengthier treatment regarding the specifics and more examples of eye triangle occult symbolism. The Vineyard Saddam Hussein connection? I can tell you by way of a first-hand report from a friend who was on the scene. There have been members of the Vineyard Church in the Los Angeles area who were boasting of having helped the U.S. military locate Saddam Hussein through visions supposedly given them by God. What is interesting here is that, at the same time, leaks from the intelligence community circulated through the internet research world, reporting occult elements in the government having utilized individuals with remote viewing abilities in pinpointing Hussein's location. Additional link. The indications are these remote viewers, who had utilized satanic sorcery, were the same individuals who then went back to their Vineyard Church and were giving testimony of visions to the Christian community. Yet more evidence of satanic infiltration? Among other things, this seems another example of the, at best, problematic nature of charismatic gifts, which unfortunately, much of the time, are literally indistinguishable from witchcraft, fortune-telling, and Ouija boards, as we see here with the Hussein scenario. As another baffling example, why does Greg Laurie choose a logo which consists of opposing triangles, and with dots in the center that could easily cause it to be construed as an eye triangle presentation? Not to mention the X shape which is used by occultists as a symbol for the Antichrist. And why does the pulpit from which he preaches literally have TV screens embedded into the front of it, which display these hypnotic, moving floating triangle shapes and X shapes throughout his sermon presentation? See this Google video at the 2:22 mark. Also at 1 o'clock and 1:33. And another Laurie video, at a mere 8 seconds in, Laurie appears on screen, with giant triangles floating and spinning in the background. I have no good answer for these questions. I want to be convinced of better things regarding people like Greg Laurie. Maybe some of these people are like any number of my Christian friends who knock on wood, or flash the devil's horns at Christian concerts, or unknowingly, at least I hope so, get occult symbols tattooed on their body. David Phelps. As a former member of the Gaither vocal band, David Phelps is considered by many to be the premier tenor in gospel music today. I noticed Phelps making the V sign while singing at a concert in Australia. Obviously it is possible he meant nothing by it. But I googled for Phelps and found his website. Below is the depiction they, has displayed on his homepage. This homepage has now been removed and replaced in the months since I first posted this. But I did get all these screen captures, which you see below. Larger image. Panoramic view. I was stunned. First of all, this has to be the weirdest grove of trees in the history of tree groves. What in the world? Additionally, we see a great big V shape, front and center, in between the park benches, and an array of other significant images. Above, in the lower red box, there appears to be a Masonic square and compass, modified somewhat. In fact, it's rather blatant. There is even a compass bow visible. And in the upper part of the same red box, a rather unmistakable image of a butterfly. We have previously discussed the monarch mind control programs. See the close-up view below. Below the square and compass, there is a creepy-looking pope-like image. Also notice in the upper red box there appears to be, yet again, something akin to a square and compass, above, the butterfly, the square and compass, and the Pope. And at the very top of the picture, we see something that looks very much like an all-seeing eye pyramid, see above. Also, a very creepy-looking horned creature of some kind, just below the pyramid. It has been explained to me by researchers and MK Ultra monarch survivors that such images can contribute towards a traumatizing mind control process. Certain images, colors, lyrics from certain songs, particular scenes in particular movies. Somehow these things are apparently being utilized by satanic ritual abusers and mind control perpetrators for their evil purposes. For example, if the individual has previously been subjected to trauma and abuse at the hands of individuals dressed in papal garb, the Pope image, seen above, may have the desired triggering or controlling effect. Below, you see depictions of the satanic druidic priests who participate in the rituals at Bohemian Grove. I'm not concluding David Phelps has done any of these things. I don't know what is going on exactly, but I would dare to surmise that something untoward is happening with this website. Bryce Taylor, a well-known mind control survivor and a former presidential model used by top world leaders, has described how various lyrics from popular songs were being used for triggering purposes. One of the specific examples she gave in her book Thanks for the Memories were the lyrics from America's popular hit song Horse with No Name. Many Hollywood movies are evidently loaded with triggering elements which target mind-controlled subjects. We've already been describing Disney movies as one example. Reportedly, the movie Dick Tracy with its eye-popping color scheming, if you've ever seen it, has been custom designed for mind-control subjects. The movie Wizard of Oz is notorious among survivors. Attacked by the bears? As a potential example, many of the 500 McMartin preschool children who brought complaints of satanic ritual abuse reported their perpetrators had been dressed up as clowns. Also, Scooter Libby, chief aide to Vice President Cheney, Libby is the one who took the fall for the Valerie Plame affair, had previously authored a very weird, creepy novel in which he described how mind control victims were traumatized by being exposed to attacks from specially trained bears. I believe people like Libby and many or most of the people in close proximity to these top syndicate members are themselves extremely dysfunctional and dissociated occultists. Then I noticed some weird lyrics in one of Michael W. Smith's songs Love Me Good, in which he refers to clowns and freaks, and you never know when you might be attacked by the bears. Smith has conceded this is the most bizarre song he has ever written. I agree. As to David Phelps, who really knows what the full story is here. By the way, it is potentially hazardous to the mind control victim for anyone to confront them directly regarding any of these matters. They almost never have any conscious awareness of their state, and the awakening process can be very difficult. Go to some of the MPDDID discussion boards for advice and professional resources if you find yourself in such a situation. In checking through his published CDs, there are many enigmatic aspects to the designs. But Christianity isn't supposed to be enigmatic. It isn't supposed to be cloaked in unfathomableness. For example, one of Phelps' albums, seen below, is titled Life is a Church. So, what does that phrase really mean? And what exactly is he doing on the CD cover? It's just weird. And given what we have seen at his website, dare I theorize his CD cover photo is at least vaguely phallic? Has anyone ever seen a church that narrow? Notice how on the front of this church, the side sections are shaded, thus highlighting the obelisk-shaped center section. Life is a what? The chosen adage life is a church is pretty obviously playing off a well-known coarse expression, life is a BH. I find that rather odd and troubling. Clearly, or so it seems to me, one of the unavoidable side effects of naming your gospel album Life is a Church is that it would cause thousands of people to involuntarily recall to mind this other coarse, bitter, unbiblical and defeatist maxim. In the next chapter, I delve into the subject of subliminals. The average person might laugh off the idea, but occultists take it very seriously. I've learned, by the way, to have a jaundiced view of church steeples, such as the one pictured on the CD, and church spires, in my travels through cyberspace. Finding out what the original intentions were of the folks who innovated many of these things. The news is not good. Satanic Templar Knights went all over Europe during the Middle Ages, for example, building cathedrals, which were loaded down with demonic gargoyle imagery and chock full of disguised obscenities and homages to their lord Lucifer. I don't have the stomach to take you through some of the details. Again, has Phelps been sabotaged by sneaky occultists who have slipped these things into his publications? I'm open to any and all explanations. Christian front personas. Please be advised, if I haven't made this clear already. And as Svaldi and other survivors carefully explained also, a split personality MPD victim who has a Christian front persona can be spectacularly convincing. Why? Because that persona, that fractured and split off part of their person, is completely genuine. A ritual abuse victim, a multiple personality disordered individual, or an MK Ultra monarch victim, all three being closely related or even identical, has virtually no awareness of any dark side or any non-Christian side. I recently watched an hour-long interview with Michael W. Smith on one of the Christian TV networks. I saw absolutely nothing but complete sincerity, as far as I could tell. If Michael is a mind control victim either as a result of an occultic family lineage or through having been involuntarily inducted, you would be very hard-pressed to point out any visible anomalies. Some survivors say that, because of their first-hand experience, they can sometimes detect certain things if they are face-to-face with a mind-control victim. I have stated this elsewhere and I say again, in regard to any of these individuals with Christian front personalities and alter personas which have been compelled through mind control into involvement in satanic activity, only God Almighty is going to be able to sort this out on Judgment Day. Could they be viewed as a biblically defined child of God after a lifetime in satanic captivity? I would like to think so, but I don't know. As far as I am aware, there is no such thing as a voluntary participant in genuine, hardcore, non-poser, Satanism/Luciferianism. Undercover wolves, summarizing the strategy. Just a brief interlude here, before going back to some more examples I have previously mentioned here and there. What are the designs of these occultic agents who have placed themselves among church people? Let me just briefly summarize for purposes. 1. By taking up a significant number of leadership positions in the church world, it minimizes the opportunity for spontaneous emergence of alternative voices in leadership, leaders who, for example, would be sounding the cry of warning regarding an emerging antichrist totalitarian police state, and sounding the warnings regarding 9/11, and many of the other shenanigans the globalists are perpetrating. The Luciferians have tried to create a kind of saturation of the market, so to speak. Either way, if you walk into any Christian bookstore these days, you see what I mean, a cacophony of voices. Wall-to-wall experts vying for your attention and your dollars. As I have pointed out before, have you noticed there is not a single high-profile Christian leader who has expressed so much as the mildest concern about 9/11s or any of these other issues? That is quite remarkable. 2. And with it comes a second purpose, not just to drown out legitimate words of warning but beyond that, to elicit actual support for the globalist agenda among church-going people. Astonishingly, the very backbone of support for the Illuminati's Antichrist agenda today comes from mainstream evangelicalism and the charismatics. Virtually every major evangelical and or charismatic church in America has signed onto this support the troops thing, which is really tantamount to an unintentional propaganda plug, that is, support the Antichrist globalist agenda. Support the Illuminati's worldwide militarization strategy. If we really want to support the troops, let's bring those kids home before any more of them are blown up. Sadly, every government measure, no matter how draconian, has received the evangelicals' widespread acceptance and endorsement. Rifling through our emails, listening in on our telephone calls, invasion of privacy, at this point, pornographically so, at the airport X-ray machines, a complete brushing aside of the Fourth Amendment, no search without probable cause, at the aforementioned airports, and the arbitrary 50-mile zone, whereby U.S. border guards now claim the right to search any person and or any vehicle within 50 miles of any U.S. border, without probable cause. The introduction of national ID cards and smart driver licenses, as well as increasingly aggressive lobbying for RFID chips. The effective elimination of habeas corpus. One executive order after the other being created by recent U.S. presidents, Bush Jr. and Obama, which give dictatorial powers to the White House. An absurd declaration of war against terror, which creates a carte blanche for worldwide militarization, the Illuminati's dream come true. The construction of hundreds of FEMA relocation camps. No questions asked. The unquestioning acceptance of martial law mini-scenarios, such as with Katrina and New Orleans. On and on it goes. This entire agenda has been slithered into conservative church culture in the guise of patriotism. If you're an upstanding, patriotic American Christian, you will support your government. And all these leading evangelical voices are constantly beating this particular drum. 3. One more very critical purpose for these wolves in the church is to mislead and confuse regarding end times issues. As I said earlier, a 10-year-old child could read through Matthew 24 in 15 minutes and understand the simple basics of what Jesus would have us to know about the return of the King. Conservative churchgoers in America and in other parts of the world are being set up to become panic-stricken when this pre-trib rapture doesn't show up in time to rescue folks from a confrontation with the Antichrist. 4. Therefore, the final purpose of these false sheep will apparently be, according to Matthew 24 and the parallel passages in Mark and Luke, to lure large numbers of these people into a trap, literally into desert locations and inner rooms, where they will then be faced with the choice, capitulate, or else. Thus I believe we will see fulfillment of the tragic prophecies of Jesus' Olivet discourse regarding a great apostasy. Huge numbers of folks, erstwhile followers of Christ, will turn out to be something other than true believers. A large percentage of today's churchgoers not genuine. Some might wonder how there could be this great apostasy of church-going people. First of all, I certainly believe in the idea of eternal security. Once you've been born again into the family of God, you cannot somehow become unborn, in my understanding. However, it becomes a question of who among us was a true believer to begin with. There are also plenty of statements in the Bible which indicate Jesus' followers who are abiding and walking in the faith can therefore have a high degree of assurance of salvation, but none of us knows with complete 100% certainty whether we are locked in. We do not receive a heavenly tattoo, a New Jerusalem ID card, nor anything like that. The Bible says work out your salvation with fear and trembling, something that has gone out of style long ago in modern evangelicalism. Long forgotten verses of the Bible suggest we don't simply get to make a decision for Christ and then waltz through the pearly gates. Hebrews 3:14, we have come to share in Christ if we hold firmly till the end the confidence we had at first. Hebrews 10:36, you need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. James 2:14, what good is it, my brothers, if a man claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save him? This is where I believe a huge tragedy is in the offing. This is one of my main motives for writing this online report. I am trying to alert church-going people trying to give aspiring Christ followers the opportunity to become apprised of the ongoing satanic deception to prepare themselves. Matthew 24:13 says, "He who endures until the end will be saved." Certainly, I would love to survive, physically, all the way to the very end, to the actual gathering of the elect. And I believe there are prescriptions for accomplishing just that, if I understand Revelations 3:10 correctly. Also, Luke 21:36, in which Jesus exhorts us, in his Olivet Discourse, that we should specifically pray that you may be able to escape all that is about to happen. For that handful of awake and alert Bible students who take this specific offer advisory seriously and take Jesus at his word, the effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man would therefore have a chance of being heard and answered in the affirmative. After all, some of us need to miraculously survive until the gathering of the elect rapture, otherwise there would be no believers to rapture. But failing that, we must learn to wait upon the Lord, and realize that no matter what may come, God will provide a way of escape, that you may be able to bear it. 1 Corinthians 10:13. There is also the promise, "The peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." Philippians 4:7. Oral Roberts and the Oxnam connection. As one could imagine, I have had many surprising and startling moments in researching through all of this subject matter. In 2005, I had one of those moments while watching a 60-minute segment, an interview with a certain Dr. Robert Oxnam. Dr. Robert Oxnam. Oxnam is easily the nation's most prominent survivor of MPD-DID, multiple personality disorder, to have come out publicly talking about his condition. He is from an elite East Coast family with blue blood pedigree, a long line of university presidents, and such. He himself had been a consultant to U.S. presidents and captains of industry, as an expert on China. At a certain point, however, his programming began to unravel. He was detecting other voices, and or personalities inside his own mind and body. I had used this term earlier. His amnesiac walls had begun to crumble, a relatively rare occurrence among mind control victims. The CBS interview with Dr. Robert Oxnam. As I was watching the interview, I kept thinking I had heard the name Oxnam somewhere before. And then I remembered, I had previously read an old article in which occult researcher Fritz Springmeier had made a reference to Robert Oxnam's grandfather. A full year earlier, I had come across this research information from Springmeier, articles he had written way back in 1991 in which he made some startling claims regarding a number of well-known Christian leaders who had emerged during the 50s and 60s, who were actually Satanists. Among a number of other prominent Christian leaders I won't mention just yet, Springmeier pointed out Oral Roberts and a certain G. Bromley Oxnam, a former and founding president of the World Council of Churches, WCC, during the 50s. Fritz claimed that not only were Roberts and Oxnam occultists, he also made references to their involvement in satanic ritual abuse, the very thing that causes MPD-DID. Oral Roberts was said to have a satanic ritual abuse program going on underneath the landmark prayer tower right on the ORU campus. So here we had the 1991 reports from occult researcher Springmeier that Grandpa Oxnam, an important figure from the mid-20th century, had been involved in Satanism and its attendant ritual abuse. Then, lo and behold, his grandson Robert shows up in 2005 with multiple personality disorder. For me, this was electrifying corroboration. G. Bromley Oxnam. If, back in 1991, Springmeier was only fabricating these claims of G. Bromley Oxnam's satanic allegiance, then how was Springmeier able to arrange for Oxnam's grandson to emerge over a decade later with telltale symptoms of satanic ritual abuse? For that reason, and a few dozen others, I have, since that time, viewed Fritz Springmeier as a very solid source. An excerpt from Springmeier's article, Oral Roberts, 33 Degrees Freemason, has been seen by witnesses participating in SRA satanic ritual abuse and mind control. Under the prayer tower is one of the programming sites. Tulsa is the main center for the campaign to infiltrate Christianity via the charismatic/Pentecostal movement with programmed multiples. G. Bromy Oxnam, 33 degrees Freemason, was head of the WCC churches and has a long history to him of working for the elite. Interested readers can pick up the story and be wise as serpents. I don't relish picking on the charismatics, but they have been a favorite infiltration target of the Illuminati. Don't get me wrong, the conservative, non-charismatics have been jackhammered as well, but the charismatics are where the syndicate has really found a home. I can tell you at this point in my discovery process that virtually all of the top-tier super slick TV preachers with the mega churches, private jets and mansions appear to be Luciferian counterfeits, unless otherwise noted. It's that bad. Aerial photo evidence. When you take a closer look at Oral Roberts University symbolism, the evidence begins to accumulate. For one thing, we see, in the photo below, a ridiculously obvious obscene, phallic-shaped reflecting pool, smack in the middle of the ORU campus. An astoundingly brazen indication of satanic allegiance. As you can see, the pool also incorporates a triangle occult symbol. A wider-angle aerial view of the campus manifests innumerable triangles and double triangles. The double triangles can have a dual significance in representing the head of Zohar symbolism. There is also an assortment of hexagons, pentagons, and octograms, the buildings in the upper right corner. The octagram being an occult symbol for Venus, the star of Ishtar, another satanic alias. Larger image. If the reports of SRA activity under the prayer tower are true, and there are a number of first-hand eyewitness testimonies out there, use your find text and web page option to locate the particular comments. Then notice the placement of the tower, with the blue circular roof, in the very center of a huge flaming star configuration, if you look closely. According to survivors of Satanism, satanic rituals are always to take place inside an occult symbol shape, and or inside a Kabbalistic circle, usually double or multiple circles. Use your own judgment, but this is reportedly video testimony from an ORU survivor. This woman reports also being taken to many military facilities. I've heard this over and over. Recall the testimony of Svali in an earlier chapter.
Society in Tulsa, how were you? You were used as a teenager to round up using Bible tracts to attract young people to get in a van and go, to ending up being taken to a satanic ritual instead of a prayer meeting.
And a lot of these kids, I didn't ever see again. I don't know where they took them.
And they took them there, and you mentioned that some may have been killed.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know some of them were killed. And then some of them were hauled off to who knows where. I don't know what they did with them.
Well,
I don't.
It could be another Manchurian candidate. You don't know. It could be an assassin. But whatever they did, you rounded them up. You were out there with Bible tracts saying, "Come to a prayer meeting." Then they would be driven, not by small little criminals, but criminals may have been doing the driving, but to a place where the elites of your city and your society controlled the city, if you will, and these are the people that were calling the shots, and these are the people that were commissioning you and others, and you were programmed to do this. I mean, it's not like you just did it on your own, free will. Your free will was impinged upon, but you were controlled and in a generational mind control program, if you will, that would recruit you for the purpose, or bring you up for the purpose of having kind of like, they could trigger you so that you would then go hand out Bible tracts and lure kids to their death.
Yeah, basically.
Oh.
And I know a lot of these kids, I mean, now I know this for my own self, because even I was taken to a lot of those Vesper meetings over at Oral Roberts.
Oral Roberts University, Tulsa?
Yeah, Oral Roberts University.
Yes.
And those Vesper meetings are basically supposed to be like prayer meetings or whatever, I guess.
Right.
And I have, memories of going in there and seeing all the, the students and different people that they would bring in, or some of them that would come in with me, and then I would zone out. I mean, I don't know if I was drugged, I don't know if I was triggered into another personality, I don't know what happened, But I mean, I would remember hearing them play certain religious songs, singing, you know, like somebody have a guitar or whatever, and they'd be in this room kind of like sitting around, you know. And then it was like I could feel myself phasing out during this praise and worship song.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would come to, and I would be under Oral Roberts University, because this is underground under Oral Roberts University, literally. And they have a satanic altar. They have rooms down there where they do torture and they do mind control and programming. And I would wake up down there during a ritual. I mean, a literal ritual. They would be doing, you know, sometimes they would do human sacrifice. Sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes it would just be, you know, rape and bondage. Sometimes it would just be, it'd be, who knows, a lot of things. But and those some of those students would be down there.
Human sacrifice. So the idea that you would be in a triggered, I guess, during this prayer and worship meeting, and then the next thing you know, it would turn into like everyone would be kind of triggered at the same time.
I'm assuming. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, because I don't know if just certain ones of us were triggered out of there and then some stayed for the front.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think that might how it played out. Like certain students or certain ones weren't that were sitting there still doing their thing. The rest of us were taken. Now, what they thought where we went, who knows? I don't know what they thought. Maybe they thought we went. They took us off for counseling or something. And they would sit there and finish their little prayer meeting out. I don't think they pulled everyone out.
Okay, so the prayer meeting would go on, but then certain ones of you would be taken to another room at Oral Roberts University.
Yeah, we were taken away.
Or to a
So
room.
I mean,
or...
I think the Vesper meetings went on.
Yes.
But without all the people that were there originally.
And this is in full knowledge of the staff. Or you have a limited point of view, I understand, but the certain people of the staff knew and were handling this.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of the instructors knew. Now I'm saying all of them because I can't say that for a fact, but I know that a lot of them knew what was going on. A lot of them suspected, and a lot of them were involved.
And then they took you to a place where adults would engage with sex with children.
Yes.
And
or torture, or whatever they felt like they needed to do. Because I got this really weird thing, and I know that there's spiritual principles involved in it, but it's something about the young and the innocent. Mm-hmm. And the more they torture them, or the more whatever they do, it brings them more power. There's something about that.
But do you feel it had a scientific aspect to it? In other words, like an organized aspect, like on a certain day they'd want a certain kind of ritual, or a certain kind of...
Yeah, they had certain days for certain kinds of rituals. I mean, I know they did. I don't know all of them.
Yes.
And they had certain times when they did things only because they wanted extra power to do something. I mean, let's say they wanted... I don't know, this is just... I'm throwing this out there.
Okay.
Let's say maybe there was a political person that wanted to rise in ranks, and he wanted a little extra demonic help. Mm-hmm. They might have a special sacrifice or a special whatever just for that person to get the power or to get whatever they need to get on and go ahead. Or maybe they decided somebody needs to be stopped. They got somebody up there that didn't follow the rules, and they want to they do a ritual to put a hold on them or to kill them or whatever, to send the demonic forces out to take care of it.
Oh, no, that's been done in my behalf.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't always have to coincide to a special day, but yeah, they have the
okay, well, so whatever
day.
the need is for the group, and then you're taken off, and then you've seen other children, for example, being tortured.
Yeah, and a lot of that, I mean, I know a lot of that was done for programming, and a lot of that was done for ritual as well. So, I mean, where did it cross over? I don't know.
Okay, the idea that the actual doing the torture would be to program that person being tortured.
Or the ones that are watching.
Or the ones watching to traumatize them in some way.
And exactly, to traumatize them, yeah.
And this was in a church setting.
Yeah, and most of the time, ironically, I mean, I was taken to underground bases, military installations, but most of the stuff that was done to me, unfortunately, was done through mainline Christianity.
Of course, that's
And
why
it
we
was
know
done
that we call
in
that
church
the beast.
buildings, and it was done in, like, yeah, that kind of thing.
If you saw the Oral Roberts family, I'm assuming, just that the acorn doesn't fall far from the tree, so the son is probably continuing on the tradition. I mean, I'm sorry to but that's an implication from the testimony here. If you could say something to the living people, is Oral Roberts is dead, of course, right?
No, I think he's still hanging in unless he's died recently.
Okay, it might be one of those weird. He's not dead. Gosh, he seems old though.
Well, these guys end up, some of them living quite old. I don't understand. Maybe it's part of the bargain.
But you saw him there involved, along with.
Yeah, Oral Roberts, most definitely. I mean, Oral Roberts raped me as a child.
He raped you as a child. So if you could see him and confront him, what would you do? Tell him to stop preaching, and stop being a hypocrite, or?
What would I say to him if I saw him?
Yeah, I mean,
Wow, that's a big one. What would I say?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, what do you say to something like that?
Well,
mostly I would say, buddy, you got a lot to answer for, and you better either start repenting and getting right, or, you got a lot to answer for. And I don't even know that I'd even want to say anything to him. I'd probably just want to throw up and walk away.
So there's no evidence of this. This is your word against his and theirs, if you will. You're naming this institution, which is looked at as a paragon of virtue in our society, a paragon of, if you will, of the gospel and of Jesus Christ and of all the good things in the Bible. One of the top universities in the world, apparently. And this is going on in the highest levels of this place, know all about it at the highest ranks. And it's just mind-boggling, I'm sorry, it's just...
Well, if you really think about it, I think like Stanford and Cambridge and Harvard and all them, I think they were supposed to start out as, Christian universities?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, so what's the difference?
And then they became secularized over time, but I mean, this Christian cover is awfully good. And then they get on TV and they have these prayers for people and they beg for money. And they
it was the hardest thing for me to get through to people because, when I warn them about this stuff, I warn them about the Benny Hinns, I warn them about the Kenneth Copelands, I warn them about all this stuff, and they'll say, but I've been to their meetings, I felt the Spirit, I saw people get healed, I heard them do this, and I saw all that.
They may have had gifts given. I mean, the gifts of God.
And I'm sitting here, they say, you can't say that because they're anointed of God. And I'm like, no, they're not anointed of God.
But couldn't they
may have an anointing, but it's not a godly anointing.
Couldn't they be anointed?
Counterfeit.
But they say that the gifts of God are given without recall. Couldn't they have gifts and then have gone to the dark side? But those gifts.
No, I don't buy it.
No, these are just totally satanic people.
They're totally satanic. I don't buy it because I think people who truly sold out to the Lord and get His gifts don't do that. The real thing doesn't do that.
Yeah, why would you go, that way? If you had the real gift, if you're really one of God's, you're going to hear the Master's voice. You're not going to go with the world system. Now, the implication that I get from all this is that the world is like this, that every institution is corrupt in ways that also involve murder, child trafficking, probably drug trafficking, contraband, and so forth and so on, the world over. Whether you take New Mexico, I heard all about the corruption yesterday in New Mexico, unbelievable. You take Washington, you take the church system, and the highest evangelical churches, the highest Catholic, we've heard about the Catholic churches and and what happens. We've heard about the sexual abuse. Of course, we've also heard kind of in the fringe in Catholic churches about satanic rituals in the churches, in certain churches in the middle of the night, pentagrams on the floor.
Yeah, and I know that, I even know up in Tulsa, the Catholic churches that were involved just as much as all the rest. I mean, yeah, it wasn't any different.
So the church would be more apt to worship Satan and do satanic ritual, including murder rituals, where they kill somebody in a church setting, and the people have, an orgiastic experience over it, or the?
Yeah, whatever floats their boat at the time.
I mean,
I'm being flippant. I don't mean to, but
yeah, but usually the satanic sacrifice and ritual orgy goes together hand in hand.
yes, and it's so grotesque you can't even imagine. You can't even. When these people, they're so demon possessed, you can't imagine what a totally demon possessed person is capable of doing, because it is so far beyond human.
Well,
okay?
they
There's
can
no humanity involved.
eat
Gone.
flesh, eat the heart. These are rituals we know about. Drink blood. Engage in sex with children and engage
total
in
torture. Sometimes I even think the torture is the worst, because they torture people mercilessly to extremes of you just can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm. And the people that are victims of the torture, do they know that they're going to be tortured, or I mean, do they suspect that there's something up,
Probably. I mean, most of them. I mean, they're drugged, obviously, and sometimes. Well, and then sometimes they're not. I mean, sometimes I guess they feel like they get more power out of somebody who's just in total terror, without being in a stupor.
So they just torture them to death, then.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're drugged, but I just wonder if they torture their own, or they look for victims outside.
They have breeders that
Okay.
they have babies just for the purpose of killing them or raising them into the program, or and sometimes they take their own. I mean, these people aren't loyal, okay? And if they feel like, well, you're on the bottom of the level and you're not really very great, well, we might as well just toss you in the mix and we'll get rid of you. I mean, they don't care. If people think that they get into this, that they're going to really get it. Most of the time, there's a few of them that's gotten really rich, and there's a few of them that's gotten some power, but the main part of them, they die penniless, and they die pitiful, and they die in a horrible way. They don't.
All the great ones of the past, the ones we know, like Aleister Crowley, and who claims to have sacrificed babies and drank their blood and eaten their hearts and all sorts of things. These people all died penniless and wrecked and destroyed.
I mean, because when you're playing games with these deviant, evil spirits, I mean, that's what you get.
The large diamond-shaped building on the ORU campus, at the bottom of the above photo, is a close match to the distinctively elongated magical head of Zoar, a modified hexagram and a Kabbalistic design illustrating the concept of opposites, the principle of as above, so below. See the example below. The satanic concept is above, so below. The idea of balancing good and evil, a kind of justification/romanticization of the Jekyll-Hyde split personality lifestyle of occultists, is elsewhere represented in occult symbolism. With the infinity symbol, for example. Also, black and white color contrasting, think of the classic Masonic black and white floor tiles in the meeting halls, is frequently incorporated to convey this significance. Again, this apparently has to do with a bizarre satanic notion which claims that great evil can be balanced out with good deeds. Very strange. On a whim, I decided to check the satellite imagery of the Cathedral of Faith campus in San Jose, California. None too reassuringly, the main building is comprised of 3 hexagons, all of which are, again, placed within this distinctively elongated double triangle, diamond, shape. What are the odds? Larger image. You have to look closely because the 2 smaller structures are partially obscured by trees. Notice also, in this above photo, the butterfly monument we saw earlier in this chapter. The monument is located just above the building, in the parking lot area. Notice that it also has a hexagon base. These are an awful lot of coincidental occult symbols, no? Larger image. Is it significant that, located literally within a stone's throw, is San Jose's main Masonic lodge, seen in the above photo, in the lower red square? And that it is also located within a stone's throw of the so-called Scottish Rite Children's Clinic, in the upper red square. I went to the Scottish Rite Children's Clinic website. It looks very dead-endish to me, no information, no schedule. No services to apply for. No physicians listed. Just a facade. I'm sorry, that's just plain creepy to me. The above photo is a close-up of the church playground at Cathedral of Faith. If this bird thing is to be interpreted as an occult symbol, then there it is right in the middle. If you've read carefully through the chapters, particularly 7 and 8, up to this point, you will know that young children are the main and preferred targets of satanic ritual abusers. I hope and pray such is not the case here. In regard to the close proximity of certain buildings, SRA survivor Bryce Taylor tells of having suffered years of abuse at her church, First Baptist Church of Woodland Hills, in the Los Angeles area, while growing up. She tells of a network of tunnels which connected the church basement to a number of neighboring homes. There was a very similar utilization of these tunnels with the McMartin preschool situation. More symbols equal more occult power? By the way, occultists believe they will accumulate dark powers in the act of displaying their symbols. The more display, the more power. Maybe that explains the large number of symbols on the ORU campus. But can magical powers really be derived from the mere display of symbols? Let's just say, the devil makes a lot of false boasts. A lot of his strategy involves bluffing. In fact, Satanism, Luciferianism is one big wild goose chase that will end when the King of Kings returns to earth. Having said that, certainly the bad guys are manifesting some kind of power and influence when they can dupe unknowing Christian people and others into displaying these symbols on their t-shirts, tattoos and other places. More imagery from the campus of ORU, above, a closer look at all the triangles and double triangle, diamond, shapes, including triangular pools. In context, those two triangular-shaped, blue, pools which form an elongated diamond shape, look closely at the above photo, would seem to strengthen a theory that these other diamond shapes seen on the ORU campus should be interpreted as double triangles, which have the added as above, so below significance. Notice again, the occult symbolism in ORU's seal, the triangle, the double circle, and those praying hands in the background, which seem far more interested in forming a triangular shape than in praying. Has anyone ever held their hands in this position during a time of prayer? The double circle concept is prevalent in occultism. Yes, I know. The official seal for every state in the Union utilizes this double circle format, inadvertent or otherwise. This simply reflects the pervasive occultic influence in our nation's affairs. Prominent Oral Roberts University graduates. I will say this much. Keep a close watch on any ORU grads who have risen to national prominence in Christian ministry. Sorry, folks, take Kenneth Copeland as one example. I will quote extensively from a research article. Kenneth is a closet, secret Freemason who does not want anyone to know this truth. It is a trademark of most proud Masons to leave key symbols veiled into pictures and also to use various keywords in speeches or secret handshakes. Here is a quote from Masonry Guidelines. Freemasonry is a peculiar system of morality, veiled in allegory, and illustrated by symbols. The application of this quote in regards to Copeland will be discussed below. Kenneth Copeland chants the words I am, which is a Masonic initiation term. And I say this with all respect, so that it don't upset you too bad. But I say it anyway. When I read in the Bible where he says, I am, I just smile and say, yes, I am too. Believer's Voice of Victory broadcast July 9, 1987. During the ceremonies of the Masonic ritual for the Royal Arch degree, the candidate is asked, Brother Inspector, what are you? And he replies, I am that I am. Note, this is clearly a sacrilegious claim to deity, part and parcel to Masonic beliefs. 33rd degree Freemason Robert Schuller also endorses his followers to chant I am. The most effective mantras employ the M sound. You can get the feel of it by repeating the words, I am, many times over. Transcendental meditation or TM is not a religion, nor is it necessarily anti-Christian. Peace of mind through possibility thinking, pages 131 to 32. Benny Hinn, whom I suspect is a Freemason, also tells Christians to chant I am. Don't tell me you have Jesus. You are everything he was and everything he is and ever shall be. Don't say, I have. Say, I am, I am, I am, I am, I am. Our position in Christ. Number 2. The Word Made Flesh. Audio tape side 2, 1991. Kenneth Copeland has stated that Jehovah means half male / half female and that God is as much female as he is male. He amplifies this strange teaching by also saying that Adam was originally half male and half female. According to the book The Secret Teachings of Freemasonry by Gordon Moore, this is exactly what the Masonic Lodge teaches, on pages 107 to 108. The dual principle of male and female in Masonic teachings is represented by the square and compass. The compass represents Osiris, the male god of the Egyptians, while the square is the symbol representing Isis, the female goddess of Egypt. Both are sexual symbols, taken from Ragon's Cowers. Philosophy, page 102. This reference to the square and compass is significant as Copeland has placed these symbols on one of his tape covers. Copeland teaches similar things that the early Mormons leaders, who were also Freemasons, taught. While the Mormons teach that God lives on a planet near the star Kolob, Copeland says that as hermaphrodite God also lives on another planet. Heaven has a north and a south and an east and a west. Consequently, it must be a planet. Spirit, Soul and Body. 1985 audio tape number 01-0601, side 1. You don't think Earth was first, do you? Huh? Well, you don't think that God made man in his image, and then made Earth in some other image? There is not anything under this whole sun that's new. Are you hearing what I'm saying? This is all a copy. It's a copy of home. It's a copy of the mother planet. Where God lives, he made a little one just like his and put us on it. Following the Faith of Abraham. 1989 audio tape number 01-3001, side 1. Compare what Freemason Mormon Brigham Young stated Adam is our father and our God with Copeland's quote. Adam, in the Garden of Eden, was God manifested in the flesh. Following the Faith of Abraham. Side 1. Also compare Freemason Mormon founder Joseph Smith's teaching that if you were to see God today you would see him like a man in form, like yourselves in all the person, image, and very form as a man. With Copeland's following description of his God. Copeland describes God as a being that is very uncanny the way he's very much like you and me. A being that stands somewhere around 6'2" inches, 6'3", that weighs somewhere in the neighborhood of a couple of 100 pounds or a little better, has a span of 9 inches across. Spirit, Soul and Body. Audio tape side 1, 1985. God spoke Adam into existence in authority with words. These words struck Adam's body in the face. His body and God were exactly the same size. Holy Bible, Kenneth Copeland Reference Edition 1991, 45, emphasis in original. Adam was the copy, looked just like God. If you stood Adam upside God, they look exactly alike. If you stood Jesus and Adam side by side, they would look and sound exactly alike. Authority of the Believer for 1987, audio tape number 01-0304, side 1. More symbols of Freemasonry are incorporated into Copeland's Shout magazine for kids. Around Kenneth's neck is an eagle above an inverted triangle. I have seen this symbol on a Masonic certificate before. The female has an inverted 5-pointed star placed on her shirt. This symbol represents the Order of the Eastern Star, which is a Masonic order for women. Is this a coincidence? Now Copeland has placed the main symbols of Masonry and the Eastern Star on his covers. When 33rd degree Freemason Robert Schuller wanted to express his secret membership in the lodge, he used a 33rd degree symbol of a double-headed eagle and sent it out to many people without them realizing what he was declaring to his Masonic brothers worldwide. 33rd degree Freemason Oral Roberts used the inverted triangle in his university logo, which has a hidden Masonic design to it. In reading through the above excerpt, it becomes abundantly obvious Copeland is teaching these bizarre Masonic, cultic doctrines, and doing so in a sneaky, covert fashion. In other words, he is not identifying this occultism, he is slipping it under the noses of his followers. I certainly see this as a classic example of covert occultism in action. Ted Haggard. Haggard is another prominent alumnus of ORU. He was America's official top evangelical, the president of the National Association of Evangelicals. As most of us know, this man's life and reputation have been blown to smithereens in a huge and tragic scandal. He was pastor of a 14,000-member evangelical church. He had authored numerous best-selling Christian books. He was looked upon as a national Christian leader. But he had been living a complete Jekyll and Hyde double life, a very heavy involvement with methamphetamines, and extensive long-term interaction with homosexual prostitutes. The remarkable thing here is the sharp and utter contrast between this dark altar persona and his dynamic, sincere, from all appearances, and effervescent public Christian persona. Given the overall context, is it not interesting that Fritz Springmeier had years earlier reported Oral Roberts' involvement in SRA going back 50 years? And then an ORU grad, Haggard, pops up in the present day, exhibiting behavior that seems nothing less than split personality? I would certainly wonder if Haggard may have spent some time under that ORU prayer tower as a young person, being subjected to mind control in some version of MPD did. Again, we seem to be looking at yet more corroboration for Springmeier's research. He has gained much of this knowledge through having married a survivor of this crime syndicate cult, Cisco Wheeler, and has therefore culled information from her and made contact with many other fellow survivors who operated at various levels of the organization. A suggestion would be to Google their two names. There is much to read about them on the web. Other well-known ORU graduates include Joel Osteen, Rod Parsley and Kathy Lee Gifford, Richard and Lindsay Roberts. Oral Roberts' son Richard, also an ORU grad, by the way, has recently had to resign as Chancellor of ORU amidst a blizzard of allegations regarding financial impropriety and other misconduct. The allegations also involve bizarre reports of his wife's extensive involvement with underage boys. She had apparently used university funds to buy cell phones for at least 9 boys, and was involved in relationships with these boys. What is odd here is the way in which the mainstream media has all but blocked out this story. A lot of the links have been scrubbed, and the story has been modified from multiple relationships with underage children to something about Roberts having been seen smoking with one underage boy. Back in the days before the internet, the Jimmy Swaggart scandal was splashed across the headlines. I think the powers that be felt they had more control over the stories back then. Nowadays, though, there are just too many occult survivors on the internet who are willing to offer their insights and their testimony. Assuming this Lindsay Roberts scenario ties into the ultra-extreme dysfunctions of Luciferianism, then it seems a decision was made to muffle the whole thing. Too much momentum being allowed to build with this scandal might encourage many other victims of ORU to come forward and break the whole thing wide open. If it is true that there have been decades of ongoing satanic ritual abuse, there might be dozens or hundreds of eyewitness accounts ready to be put before the public. In fact, in browsing through various blogs which have been discussing the ORU scandal, one can observe a lot of strangely intense, seething bitterness from folks who seem to be ex-ORU or have some kind of past association. But SRA involves a lot of shame. Luciferians routinely count on their victims being too humiliated to come forward. This story, however, has been breaking from a different and unusual angle. Outside observers have photographed, according to court documents, Lindsay Roberts having relatives with these underage boys. Below, one more look at the ORU campus. This is the satellite view of the tall building with a pyramid in front. You also see, again, this utterly occultic-looking, reflecting pool with triangular and phallic shaping. If we didn't know anything about the potential Luciferian aspects to ORU, you would certainly be left scratching your head as to why anyone would ever design a pool with such bizarre shaping. I think it's pretty clear we need to connect some dots in regard to Oral Roberts.